You know, whether you've put on a pair of headphones, watched a big blockbuster movie, or fired up a video game console, there's a really good chance you've used a Sony product. But the story of how this global giant came to be, well, it doesn't start in some fancy boardroom. It starts in the rubble of post-war Tokyo. We're going to dig into how a tiny electronics shop became one of the most influential brands on the entire planet.
It all kicks off with a question that, honestly, sounds like a punchline to a joke, but it's absolutely true. How in the world does a company go from making a kitchen appliance that couldn't even cook rice properly to creating the PlayStation? The answer is just an incredible story of vision, grit, and reinvention.
So, to find that answer, we've got to go back, way back. Picture this, it's 1946. The place is Tokyo, a city that is literally rising from the ashes of World War II. It is right here that this incredible story gets started.
20. That's it. That's the number of people who started what would eventually become Sony. I mean, forget about some sprawling corporate campus. This was a tiny operation in a city still recovering from war, run by a handful of people with almost nothing, except a massive amount of ambition.
And this was their mission. For the founders, Masaru Ibuka and Akio Morita, this wasn't just about building a business. They saw their work as a patriotic duty, a way to use innovation to help their country get back on its feet and show the world what Japan could do. So right from the beginning, this was about way more than just making a profit.
Of course, having a noble mission doesn't automatically mean you're going to be successful. The company, which at the time was called Tokyo Tsushin Kogyo, try saying that 3 times fast, had to figure things out through a whole lot of trial and error.
And here is that legendary stumble we were talking about. Their very first product, an electric rice cooker that either burned the rice or left it completely raw, a total flop. But here's the key. Instead of giving up, they pivoted. By 1950, they released Japan's very first tape recorder, and it was a huge hit. That success set them firmly on the path they'd follow for decades: consumer electronics.
So, as they started to think about going global, they realized their original name was a bit of a mouthful for anyone outside of Japan. Their solution was simple, and honestly, brilliant: Sony. It's this perfect mix of sonus, the Latin word for sound, and sunny, a friendly, familiar American term for a young boy. The name was catchy, it was easy to say anywhere in the world, and it just captured that spirit of a young, energetic company ready to make some noise.
Okay, so now they've got a cool new name and a laser focus on audio. Sony was about to create something that wouldn't just define them as a company, but would literally change the way all of us experience the world.
This is it, the TR-63 transistor radio. Now you gotta remember, before this, radios were basically big pieces of furniture. Sony made one that was small enough to fit in your pocket. For the very first time, you could take your music with you, wherever you went. It was an absolute sensation, especially in America, and it completely cemented Sony's reputation as a master of miniaturization and innovation.
After that transistor radio hit, the floodgates just burst open. For the next 30 years, Sony wasn't just part of the conversation in electronics, they pretty much were the entire conversation.
I mean, just look at this run they went on. This isn't just a list of gadgets. This was one cultural earthquake after another. 1960, they give us the first portable TV. 71, the VCR arrives, and suddenly you can watch movies on your schedule, not the TV networks. Then in 79, the Walkman. It didn't just make music portable, it created a personal soundtrack for your life. It gave you your own little audio bubble in a crowded world. And then, in 82, the CD player brings perfect digital sound to the masses. Every single one of these wasn't just a new product, it was a phenomenon.
But Sony's ambition didn't stop at just making the devices. They had a bigger vision. They realized that to truly dominate, they needed to control the content that people were listening to and watching on those devices.
And so, they built an empire. They went out and bought Columbia Pictures, jumping headfirst into the movie business. They built Sony Music into an absolute powerhouse. And then, in 1994, came the masterstroke, the Sony PlayStation. It wasn't just another product. It was a brand new pillar for the company, transforming Sony into a true, all-in-one entertainment giant.
But as we all know, no empire goes unchallenged. The 2000s brought tough new competitors and a market that was changing at lightning speed. Sony had to adapt all over again, or risk becoming a thing of the past.
So, their modern strategy became all about focused reinvention. Faced with fierce competition from companies like Apple and Samsung, Sony stopped trying to fight a war on every single front. Instead, they doubled down on what they did best. They poured everything into making PlayStation the undisputed king of gaming, an ecosystem of incredible hardware and can't-get-it-anywhere-else software. In a truly brilliant move, they used their camera expertise to become the world's top supplier of camera sensors, putting a tiny piece of Sony inside their competitors' smartphones. And all the while, they kept leveraging their movie and music studios to create blockbuster content.
You know, when you look back at their entire journey, from that disastrous rice cooker to the PlayStation 5, it all really comes back to this one simple, powerful idea from the founders. This has been their guiding light through every failure, every invention, and every single reinvention. It's just baked into the DNA of Sony.
So, as we look at this company that has shaped so much of our modern world, the real question isn't about what they've already done, but what they're going to do next. In a world of AI, virtual reality, and constant change, Sony's mission is still the same. The only thing left to see is what that next revolution is going to look like.